Where does play fit in with dressing and indeed with adult life? Some may say it's not fitting, it's not natural, it's not appropriate for adults to play. And especially those perhaps from an earlier age generally, who have this view that men should be men and women should be women, whatever that meant. In other words, that for men, for example, to be creative with dress and so on was very much taboo, at least in my society in years gone by. But I beg, of course, to differ with that view. Quite apart from the fact that play, of course, it plays a very important, satisfying, and what I think most would regard as natural part in sex, as an act of exploring and connecting. It's seen as an admirable profession in acting, dance, in the movies, and the arts in general, and one that is edifying for both performer and their audiences. And perhaps you might say that any kind of creative expression and spontaneity is, in a way, a form of play. Writing certainly would fall into that category as well. But dressing up particularly may be associated with a child's role play, and perhaps that's why quite a lot of people feel very wary about cross-dressing. They think it's something that adults shouldn't be engaging in. But for me, it's as an adult playing to explore being myself, being a part of myself that often doesn't have expression. And it's also playing, as I do with the Transformation Tuesday, with being other people, trying to imagine what it is like to step into the shoes of another person, to have a sense of their experience. Of course, that's something that I am creating for myself. It's not necessarily what their real experience is, but to actually shift my own perspective. And in doing that, possibly I may be channeling something, I may be drawing on some archetypal material that's accessible to us all. And this kind of play is actually really important for someone like me who's on the autistic spectrum, who has difficulty actually forming a so-called theory of mind, actually appreciating what someone else might be thinking, what their perspective may be in the world. So it does actually play a useful part in that sense. Play for me is a counter to being very rigid, for being too serious all the time. And I find myself being quite rigid and serious a lot of the time, wanting myself to be taken seriously. It allows for a little humour, it allows for a relaxation of that rigidity, a letting down of the ego narratives that I put up, and perhaps discovering something of the nature of what it is to be human, and having this opportunity, this freedom to explore, to play, to be other people, and to be presenting yourself in different ways, and drawing out different aspects of personality that might not normally come to the surface. For me, that's what life is about. Primarily, it's about constantly growing, being open to opportunities, and constantly learning. It's about embracing colour and variety, and in so doing, to become more alive, perhaps more aware, more integrated as a person. In this, I believe, play plays an important part. It's not just good, healthy, and useful for kids.